So my name is Jamie Bassos. I'm a board-certified behavior analyst. And for those of you who don't know what that means, basically I use the science of behavior to look at different behaviors. So we're looking at interfering behaviors, we're looking at increasing appropriate behaviors, we're looking at behaviors that don't exist yet in a child or adult's repertoire, and looking at introducing those behaviors. So today we're going to talk about potty training specifically in children and adults who have either never been exposed to potty training before or have been exposed and you've run into some barriers. So let's get started. Okay, so what are we going to learn today? You'll be able to, after leaving this room, identify key considerations in the assessment and planning of toilet training. So you'll be able to take a look at what you have already tried or what you've done, or if you haven't done anything at all, and identify how you want to start. You'll be able to recognize common barriers to toilet training, whether you've already run into those and don't know what they mean, or might run into them as you start the process of potty training. You'll also learn specific techniques. So after we go through the common barriers to potty training, we're going to teach you how to potty train using different techniques, because there is not one just cookie cutter potty training program that works for all kids or adults. And then you'll also learn to identify the risks to training success and troubleshooting strategies. So if you start potty training, things are going well, and then you run into some roadblocks, how to troubleshoot those roadblocks as you're going through that process. So is your child or adult ready to start potty training? It doesn't matter. It's, are you ready to take on that next step with your child or adult? People will say all the time, oh, they're not yet 2 years old, or they're not ready, or they're not showing an interest in the potty, or they can't pull their pants up. And we'll go through some of those things that you should look for to start the process, but it really doesn't matter. It's really, are you ready to take that jump and start programming? So some of the types of toileting difficulties are delayed use of toilet for urination. So we sometimes will see that children won't be interested in the potty, so we'll wait and we'll wait and we'll wait, and now they're 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 years old, and they're still not interested in the potty, so now we haven't exposed them to those contingencies or those experiences with the toilet itself. We also have the delayed use of toilet training for bowel movements. So a child might be potty trained completely for urination, but isn't successful using the potty for bowel movements, and we see that a lot. Sometimes it has to do with anxiety, sometimes it has to do with constipation or different GI issues. So we'll get into a little bit of what that looks like too. And then we have nighttime accidents. So the child is completely potty trained during the day, wonderful, things are going great. The second that we try to remove the diaper at night, we're waking up every night at 3 a.m. to change the sheets and do the laundry, and it's a constant, every night occurrence. Dependence on others is a big one too. So when we have successful potty training experiences, but they're so dependent on the caregiver or adult that's working in their environment, or the teacher who's constantly having to remind them, oh, hey, do you have to go to the bathroom? Or I think it looks like it's time to go potty, or they have to physically guide them to the bathroom. So there are differences in different individuals who might be dependent on the adult in their life who's trained them how to use the toilet, and then they become dependent on that person, and they won't use it if that person isn't available. Loss of skill or regression is another common difficulty. So they'll get it, and then they lose it for some reason. And so what does that look like? How do we handle that? We're going to go through that together. And then lack of generalization. So I hear this all the time. My son will go potty with my husband, but he won't even walk into the bathroom with me. Or he'll go pee for both me and my husband, but when I go try to make him have a bowel movement on the potty, he'll only go with dad. Or he'll only go in the presence of a sibling. So there are certain environmental things that have to be present, and the child isn't generalizing to all the other environmental things that they're exposed to. So they won't go potty. They'll go potty at home, but they won't go potty at school. Or they'll go potty at home, and they won't go potty in Target or Walmart. So now we're like in the community, and we got our underwear on. What do we do? We're running into generalization problems. So we're going to go through what that looks like and how to program for those types of difficulties. So here's some implications of toileting difficulties. Low self-esteem. The child is exposed to so many repetitive accidents or not being successful, and then they start to feel bad about, what am I doing wrong? Why can't I do this? How come I can't be successful? It's hard for parents and caregivers and educators. It's, time out of, being with your other children in the home or being with your other students in a classroom, and it's expensive. I mean, let's face it, diapers and all of the things that come with not being potty trained are very, very expensive. So cost is a big one. The loss of inclusion opportunities. So typically when we're potty training an individual, we're taking them out of the environment that they're typically in, whether it's the classroom or a home setting, and we're spending so much time in the bathroom, and it's continuous. And because of how long that process can typically take if it's not successful, they're losing all of those inclusion opportunities to be with their peers and be with their family. There's also the compromised privacy and dependence on others. When you're doing this potty training program and it's taking so long, you're with an adult or a caregiver for all of those different times that you're in the bathroom, and now you're dependent on those people to be there. And then they're in the bathroom with you. This is a private time, and as you get older, as you come into adulthood, you want your privacy. So having, that dependency can sometimes be, problematic. And then the lost educational time is another implication, where the child is removed from their educational environment, whether it be they're not allowed to go because they're not potty trained, and I see that all the time in preschool settings or different private schools where you just can't get in, you can't go to school unless you're potty trained. So that's really unfortunate for a lot of our families that have to go through that process. But also when you're in the classroom environment, having to be pulled out of educational time to be in the bathroom working on the potty training program. There are some programs out there. Within our organization, we work a lot with preschool autism classrooms, for example, and their potty training programs all day they're in the bathroom. They're running educational programming in the bathroom, but they're losing that time with their peers and their circle time and their snack time, all of those things they're taken out of to work solely in the bathroom to work on potty training. So impacts of failed training attempts. And I'm sure you are all here because you want some tips and pointers on how to either get started or you've tried some things and they haven't worked. So what happens when we do initiate toilet training and that child or adult doesn't come in contact with the reinforcement and then we stop the program? What happens? Sorry? Right. Yep, backwards. They haven't come in contact with that reinforcement, which we're going to talk about what that means. And now they've learned that, my exposure to potty training was, this thing, and I engaged in maybe some of these problem behaviors, and then I got out of doing it for a long time. We call that negative reinforcement. So now we've learned that we don't have to do potty training because I'll just engage in these problem behaviors and then we don't have to work on that anymore. So we've removed that demand. But we're not going to give up because every child can be potty trained. So assessment and planning. The first thing we want to do is rule out any medical concerns. We always tell our families to make sure to go to a doctor and make sure that they are A-OK for any potty training. So there's no UTIs, there's no constipation. You always want to get a physical exam first to make sure that we can start any potty training procedure. And then, is my child adult ready to do this? And these are some of the things you can look for. Again, it's not necessary, but can they sit on the toilet? Can they stay dry for at least 2 hours? Can they pull their clothes up and down? Can they indicate the need to use the toilet? Are they interested in using the toilet? And do they wish to please their caregiver? Because a lot of this is a social reinforcer as well. So, hey, I went potty. That's a really big one. I want to please mom and dad. I want to please my teachers, grandma, grandpa. But are we really ready? Now, those other things you can look for, and if your child or adult has those, awesome, great. We're definitely ready. But you really just need to figure out if your child or adult can follow simple directions. Can they follow any kind of simple routine that you already have going in the home or in the classroom? Do they do a snack time, a circle time? Do they do bath time and dinner time? Those are simple routines that you can easily incorporate another simple routine into, which potty training is another just simple routine, a simple chain of behaviors that you can introduce into their already existing framework of following simple routines. Another one is subtle signs of awareness. So are they touching their diaper when they're wet, or are they realizing that they're wet or soiled? It's not necessary to proceed. It will help you when you start potty training, but again, it's really not necessary. We do want to look for the developmental level of a 2 or 3-year-old to get started. So again, following those simple routines, simple directions. So why do children and adults with special needs commonly have toileting difficulties? Typically, we do see a slow rate of learning. And this is just, we want to make sure our children are available for learning. Are they able to stay on task? Do we have identified reinforcers that we can use for potty training or just learning in general? And are there interfering behaviors that are impacting their ability to learn, not just potty training, but just learning in general? And then delayed social awareness and sensitivity. So this is a really important one. So when they're in the classroom, are they aware that there are other peers in the classroom that are using the potty, or are they all going to the potty together? I know in my son's preschool classroom, they line up to all use the potty like one after another, and they're all talking about the potty and they're singing about the potty. So it's this very big social awareness about using the potty that helps kind of promote that positive potty behavior.
That won't change when he's in his 30s either.
Yeah. Delays in communication is another one. So another difficulty that we run into is the child or adult isn't able to communicate their wants and needs. So they either don't have an AAC device that has been successful, or they're not verbal, or they're not able to sign. So really important that we teach those communication strategies too around toileting as well. And then we have anxiety and unique sensitivity. So a lot of children with special needs or different developmental needs and learning differences have unique sensitivities. So going into the bathroom itself is very anxiety provoking, even as adults. I mean, you walk into a bathroom and there are bright lights, and there might be fans on, and there's flushing toilets, and there's these, big porcelain things with holes in the middle that you're supposed to sit on. Like, these are very, kind of scary things for any child and sometimes adults walking into these novel situations. So I had a unique case a couple years ago. I had a 7-year-old who had severe anxiety around when she was urinating, hitting the toilet water, and that sound alone was so, she was just very sensitive to it. So we had to end up putting lining paper towels between the seat and the water to help increase her success of using the bathroom, and then slowly fading away the paper towels, and that worked. And it's all about figuring out what's going to work in terms of desensitization to using the potty. But anxiety is a big one, and we're going to talk about that a little bit more.
Obviously, I'm a teacher, and in our school, a lot of toilets have the automatic flush thing, and we've got a lot of kids that are afraid of those, and so the aides have the little Post-its with them, and they put the Post-it over the sensor so that it doesn't automatically flush while the kid's on it.
Right.
That's
awesome. Yeah.
And then the kid's not freaking out about it, so, because that's apparently a very common thing with them, is just that loud flush.
Of course.
Toilet, so.
And then when you're sitting on it, then it sprays up, and that's like a whole nother thing too. Yeah, very frightening.
That's not a bidet.
Well, yeah. Some toilets, that's a different talk. Another common difficulty is motor delays. So being able to pull your pants up and down, being able to dress yourself, being able to flush the toilet, pick the seat up, those kinds of things. Little to no generalization, which is something that we had touched on briefly before. And then parent and caregiver and educator burnout. I mean, this is the biggest one. You're working on so many things with your child and with the students that you work with. It's hard. It's, at the end of the day, the last thing you want to do is sit in the potty, all afternoon and do potty training. I mean, you're tired. And on top of that, they're probably engaging in other behaviors that are impacting your day, impacting their ability to sit on the potty. So typically potty training is like the last thing on your mind. Like, let's just get through this day, let's eat dinner, and then let's try to have a normal bedtime routine before, the next day starts all over again. So that's a big one too. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the barriers to effective toilet training. So the first one we're going to talk about is slow rate of learning, competing learning history, and then the aversion to toileting. Do some of you have individuals that are either your children or children you're working with that have these barriers? Yes. Okay, great. So you're going to learn some strategies. Whoops. Stepping on my microphone. Okay, so slow rate of learning. We're going to talk about some of the steps to take when you run into a slow rate of learning, when you start potty training. And after we talk about the barriers and the procedures here, we're going to talk about the different procedures in more detail a little bit later in the slides. So the first thing you want to do when you have a late learner, you want to start with simple clothing. So dark underwear, socks, t-shirt. The socks are really to keep their feet warm if they get cold. T-shirts so they're not running around naked. And the dark underwear is so you can catch the accidents before they happen. So if they're wearing light-colored underwear, it's hard to see if they start to go a little bit, unless it starts running down their leg, and then it's usually too late. So the dark underwear you can see as soon as they start to go, you start to see a wet spot. And that's to catch those accidents, which we'll talk about. Open access and prompting to frequent consumption of liquids is really important. So I like to call these the tea parties, especially with the girls. It's very popular. You sit at a table and all you do is talk about tea parties, and you're drinking a ton of liquid. You just keep cheersing, and you're drinking your tea, and you're feeding your Barbies. And even with the boys too, there's different things that you can do to make it fun and reinforcing. But you want to make sure you have open access and you're prompting frequently. So a lot of our kids that we see, they won't drink enough. So we're constantly saying, oh, hey, there's some water. Why don't we have some? Or doing some fun games with water. All those college games we used to play with, like the ping pong balls, use those. Flip cup. I mean, it all works. Yeah, whatever you can do to help make the consumption of liquid more fun is usually works. And then what we want to do is identify high probability times of the day. So in the world of behavior analysis, a lot of what we do is data collection. So we want to make sure we have an idea of when is the behavior happening already? When are they wet? When are they going? So we take a baseline data to figure that out and figure out how many times a day are they going? What are the intervals in which they're going? And then we would, go from there. And then using the toileting routine and a sit schedule. So we're going to talk about what a sit schedule looks like and how to do it. But essentially, you're taking the child on an interval. So let's say it's every 30 minutes. You're going and sitting on the potty every 30 minutes. And your sit schedule is going to, be a little bit different, where you're sitting on the potty and then coming off of the potty for potty breaks. So those are two different kinds of procedures. And then you want to identify potent reinforcement. So a reinforcer to us could be, a reinforcer is a reward for appropriate behavior. So you want to identify something that the child is going to want to work for, want to earn. Food and money and clothing, these are all reinforcers for us as adults. But for children, they're interested in, video games and candy bars and, adult attention. So we want to figure out what's going to be the highest, most potent reinforcer for that individual. And then we want to isolate it for only potty training. So, for example, for my son, when we were potty training, which was an experience. It was the Kindle Fire, and he had this one Daniel Tiger video that he wanted to watch, and so we isolated this Daniel Tiger potty training video for going potty, and that was the only time that he could watch it. So all day he's asking, I want to watch Daniel Tiger. I'm like, well, we can't watch Daniel Tiger until you go potty. So then he was going potty and then earning Daniel Tiger. But we want to take that one special, highly reinforcing thing and only use it for success on the potty. Something we run into is reinforcer burnout. So they don't want that reinforcer anymore. So learning how to, switch it up and do assessments and figure out what they want to work for that day or that time that they're going. One good thing to do is to take them to the toy store or the candy aisle and be like, pick anything you want. And then take those things and put them up in a box in the room and take them out periodically and just, give them some exposure to it so they know what it is, and then seeing what they engage in for the longest periods of time, or see what they request or see what they want to play with, and then taking those and then isolating them for going potty. And then multiple people running the procedure is super important for generalization purposes. We see a lot that, mom is in charge of potty training, and that's it. Or dad is the only one who can do bowel movement training, and I don't want to, be involved. But then what we find is that one child will only go with that adult and won't go if the other adult isn't present or is the only one present, and they'll hold it or they'll have an accident. So generalization is key. So the second barrier is competing learning histories. So this is a competing learning history would be where you've tried multiple things. You've tried potty training and then it hasn't been successful, or it was, and then you stopped and then it wasn't. Some of the back and forth. And for this particular barrier, you want to identify what is the stimulus control around voiding. So what are the things or people that signal that it's time to void for that individual child? So is it diapers? Is it this particular person? Is it this corner behind the couch under the curtain? Is this where they're going every time they're, going to the bathroom? And we see that a lot. They'll run away and go hide under the table, or go into their bedroom. So that's what we want to figure out. What is the stimulus control surrounding the voiding? And then we want to use a shaping procedure. And what this is we're slowly reinforcing closer and closer approximations to the target behavior. So let's say, for example, the child is only going when there's a diaper present. They're holding their urine all day, and then you put a diaper on them and they go. Because I've heard that happening. I don't know if you've had any experience with that. And because it's very common. So what we'll do is the diaper is the stimulus control. So what we do is we take that diaper and we put them on the potty in the diaper. And then we slowly cut away the diaper as they're sitting on the potty, not in one sitting, but slowly over time as they're successful, going on the potty with the diaper on and then slowly cutting away the diaper and reinforcing with your highly reinforcing reinforcer those closer and closer approximations to just voiding while sitting on the potty. Does that make sense? So that's one example. Another example is, oh, sure.
So when you say cutting away, are you mean literally cutting into the diaper? Or
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
You're cutting it and then you're putting it on them as pieces are fading away from the diaper.
Okay. And don't you have problems with the stuff coming out of the diaper? I mean, the stuff that makes the diaper absorbent?
Yep, but they're on the potty, so it's just,
So you just use that cutaway diaper when they're on the potty?
yes. Yep, the cutaway diaper is just when they're sitting on the potty. Yeah.
Is it laying on the potty?
No, they're in it, so you put it on them. And then you would slowly cut away pieces of it, so you can either cut away,
Tiny piece.
yeah, yep, it's like just inches from the different sides of the diaper until there's nothing left. And then they're successfully going in the potty. Another example is I had a student that I was working with who would only go, like I told you, behind the couch, under a curtain, like in a dark space. So dark spaces was his safe zone to void. So what we did is we took that curtain, a similar curtain, brought it into the bathroom, put it over his head on the toilet, and then slowly faded the curtain away so that he was successfully going on the potty without the dark space, and then eventually returned the lights on in the bathroom. That was an interesting day, but it was great. So that would be a couple examples of a shaping procedure. Another example that you can use for competing learning histories is having other family members model toileting. So bringing your son or daughter, I wouldn't do this with students, obviously, just if they're your children. Little caveat there, but showing them how to use it. So, I hear a lot of dads modeling how to appropriately stand and use the potty for their sons, or, just bringing them in as you're going, look, mommy's going potty, or daddy's going potty, or brother, sister, look how they use the potty. It's a good thing to get just more exposure to appropriate toileting and talking about toileting. You can never talk about toileting too much. And then another example to use. Oh, sorry. Someone have a question? Okay. Another example would be social stories. I'm sure you've heard that term before. And here's just a simple example of a social story. We take pants off. We sit on the toilet. We put our pants on. We flush the toilet. We wash our hands. We dry our hands, and we go and play. So this can be customized to anybody. It doesn't have to be board maker pictures. It can actually be pictures of them going and modeling those things, or a sibling or a parent. I like to use the more real life pictures. So it's a real person, not a cutout of a man or woman. This is just one example, and you can talk about this outside of potty training, activities. Like you could be sitting at the dinner table and we'll say, we want to review the toilet training social story. Let's go over what we do when we go to the bathroom. Another good thing to potentially use is, and my link isn't going to work here, but this is the potty training Daniel Tiger song. But this is a very super catchy potty training song that we would sing like the whole day. And please excuse my voice, but it's if you have to go potty, stop and go right away. Flush and wash and be on your way. And it's just this simple, catchy jingle that gets stuck in your head. You'll be singing it the rest of the day. And so my son would just walk around the house.
What's the name of it? Is that where we find the song?
Yeah, it's Daniel Tiger's Neighborhood, and it's if you Google Daniel Tiger's Neighborhood and then the potty training song, or maybe it's like Flush and Wash and Be on Your Way song. It's super, super catchy. And it's one of those things that you can just, remind them, like, oh, here are the steps in the toileting, routine that you can sing about, and it's fun, and it's catchy, and look, Daniel Tiger does it. So just another example to use for those, one of those barriers. And then prompt fading is really important. And this is an example, the motivator. How many of you are familiar with this timer, the motivator? Awesome, yeah. So this is a great tool to use to help remind you or to remind the individual when it's time for them to go potty. So if you're using a sit schedule or an interval schedule, the adult can fade the prompting to the actual learner, so the child or the adult, and it helps to keep them in tune to when they have to go. So they might not feel that they have to go because of low muscle tone or something along those lines. So the timer will help remind them, oh, it's been 30 minutes, I have to go use the potty now. Instead of the adult having to constantly remind them, oh, it's been 30 minutes, you need to go use the potty, or it's been an hour, you need to go use the potty. It's a really nice way to just have that reminder without the external environment telling you, oh, it's time to go. Yes?
You just said something that I had never heard before. They always were saying that my son has low muscle tone and da-da-da. So that's associated with not being able to feel.
Oh, yeah.
He's never cared about dirty diapers.
Mm-hmm.
Wet diapers. So okay, all right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we'll talk about a procedure, it's called the sit schedule for low muscle tone. So when they don't actually have the sensation that they feel that they need to go, it's a great procedure to use to teach them, oh, this is what it feels like that to go, or this is what, this is what that feels like. So, and the motivator is another good one to use because it just reminds them, even if they can't feel it, they know they're going to have to go every hour and a half.
Okay. Thank you.
Just sure.
To clarify, the motivator is just a stopwatch, right?
It is it's a timer. You could wear it on your, on your belt or on your, wherever you want to put it.
Okay.
And there are different things that are less bulky. Like there's a watch, I think it's called GymBot or something, where you can have it on a resetting interval, and you don't have to do anything with it. It automatically resets itself. So you set it for a half an hour, and every half hour without somebody having to reset it, it will go off every half hour. So the adult or whoever's controlling the time interval just needs to go in and set the original time interval, and then it automatically will reset itself. Okay, and barrier 3, aversion to toileting and anxiety. And this is a big one. The first thing we want to do is identify the functions. So when we talk about anxiety, it's one of those things that as behavior analysts, we have a really hard time analyzing because we can't see anxiety. We just see the behaviors that come from being anxious. So we see, sweaty palms. We can hear your heartbeat, with a stethoscope. We can see that you might be sweating or clammy or some of those other behaviors that are associated with anxiety. A lot of children will engage in tantrum behavior, aggression, screaming, crying, whining, escape, avoidance. They're running in the other direction. They don't want to have anything to do with the potty. A lot of these behaviors come from being anxious about what's going to happen when I use the bathroom. So we want to consider a few things. We want to consider the space. So how big is the bathroom? Is it too big? Is it too small? Are the lights too bright? Are they too dark? The toilet itself, we like to pick a toilet that's going to be appropriate for that child or adult. We don't want to use something too big or something too small. We want to use something functional. So if we are using a potty seat, we want to make it look as much like a potty or a regular toilet as possible. But we want to make sure that it's, not scary for that individual. If that child is, afraid of white things, maybe we need to get a different colored toilet for potty training, purposes. So we want to consider all of those things. The disruption of routine is a big one. So when we're going and we're doing potty training, we're usually interrupting something every 30 minutes or every hour. So what are we doing? What is the routine that we're interrupting? Are we always interrupting recess? Are we always interrupting, time with mom and dad? So thinking about when you're doing the potty training procedure is going to be really important too. You don't want to be doing it when you're, having a family get together and everyone's at the house and it's loud and crazy and it's a big party, and then every 30 minutes you're having to interrupt that to go to the potty. So that can be, anxiety provoking too. The actual task itself can be, anxiety producing too. So the actual behavior of voiding and going and hearing the sound in the toilet, or, releasing something from your body that you're not familiar with and that's a whole new behavior for you, can be, anxiety provoking as well. The loss of a diaper. So they've had this thing, that they're attached to since birth, and now you're taking this away from me. It's like a lovey almost, we've been in diapers forever, and now you're taking it away. This is not okay. And the longer they're in them, the more attached they can get. So that's another thing to think about. Loss of reinforcement opportunities. So this kind of goes with your disruption of routine. So that routine that you're in, that reinforcement opportunity can be tied together. So thinking about when you're programming to do potty training, what are you removing them from? Or what are they losing because you're going to the bathroom? And then there's also the history of pain that can be associated with constipation or for sitting too long. Some of the different potty training procedures out there have kids sitting on the toilet for, hours. That's not okay. We don't want to be sitting on the toilet for that long. And that can cause, pain. And then when they have to sit again, there's that anxiety. Oh, my tushy's going to hurt. I don't want to sit for that long. So different things to think about. So when we do have that aversion to toileting or that anxiety, we want to teach relaxation techniques outside of the bathroom. So it is super important that the child or adult learns to relax when they're on the toilet. This is a calming place. We need to have neutral activities. We can be reading books. They can be playing with their iPad or their iPhone or, something, a toy, a fidget, whatever's going to help them relax their body and use the bathroom. And what we want to do is not just teach that while they're sitting on the toilet, but rather outside of those situations. So practicing those relaxation techniques throughout the day on another schedule. So maybe every couple hours, we sit Johnny down and we say, hey, Johnny, we're going to practice our relaxation techniques. What do you want to play with? And you offer a book or an iPad or an iPhone, and you just talk about how we're relaxing, we're taking deep breaths, we're relaxing our body. And that really, really, really helps and really generalizes over to the potty when now you're sitting on the toilet. Okay, we're gonna practice relaxing on the toilet. What do you want to sit with? This toy, this iPad, and that's a nice way to get that generalization. Systematic desensitization is similar to shaping, which is what I was talking about with cutting away the diaper before. So that's another example to use when you're talking about desensitization. The other example I gave with the paper towel in between the seat and the water, that's another systematic desensitization procedure. Some children are deathly terrified of the bathroom itself, so getting them to take a step into the bathroom is, a big step forward. So systematically reinforcing each step that's closer and closer and closer to even just sitting on the toilet and then eventually voiding, it's important to go very slow through that process. You don't want to push them too fast. If they're afraid, then we need to work through those fears, and we need to reinforce with whatever our reinforcer is, whether it be, a special movie on the iPad or a Skittle or a gummy bear or, whatever it is you're going to be using, and getting them closer and closer to that end response, which would be sitting and voiding on the potty. Any questions about that? All right, so selecting your strategy. Now we get to the fun part, if you're not having fun already. We're going to talk about these different strategies. So there's interval training, there's the sit schedule, there's rewarding successful toileting, dry pants checks, reinforcement for dry pants, manipulating the stimulus control, diaper fading, teaching initiations, and error correction for accidents. So how many of you in the audience have tried potty training before with your child? Okay. And how many of you haven't started? Okay, great. So we'll talk about preparation, and then we'll talk about how you select your strategy. And let me tell you, too, that in selecting your strategy, there's no wrong strategy. You can try so many different things, and you can piece strategies together, and there's not one cookie cutter potty training program that's going to work for every child. Yes?
Yeah. Question about how you mentioned earlier about the child watching parents go to the bathroom. So, we've done that, but my son, he's 2.5, so you sit them on the toilet, right? He doesn't stand in front of the little potty. So, I've had this discussion with my husband that he should mimic that too, and he doesn't agree. I said that, for him to sit on the toilet. So, do you have, does that confuse the child with seeing the mom sit and the dad standing, and then the child has to sit?
Yeah, no, it's a really, really good question. The reason that we have younger children sit on the potty, especially boys, is when they're sitting and they're leaning forward a little bit, it's putting pressure on the bladder, so it actually occasions urination more so than standing. It also relaxes their body, so their legs are calm, so they're more likely to go and then access the reinforcement. In terms of the confusion, I don't think so. But if you're finding that you're hitting roadblocks along the way, then it might be something to talk about with your husband, and maybe try asking him to show him how to do it sitting, or you can try standing with a 2.5-year-old. You're more likely to get success sitting because of, again, that bladder pressure, but you can also try standing as well. That's a good question. Okay, so preparation. So what will we be sitting on? There's lots of different things that we can sit on. You can have a potty chair. So they have the really fancy ones now with there's an iPad holder on the potty chair itself. I know, it's a little intense. And they have the ones that sing when you flush. You don't need all the bells and whistles. You really, really, really don't. I like to recommend to my parents that we work with to make it as simple as possible and actually look just like a toilet. So if you can find those Baby Bjorn white potty seats that look like a small version of a toilet, that's perfect. Go with that. You don't need the fancy bells and whistles. You can also use a potty seat, so putting the potty seat directly on top of the toilet to fit their tiny tushies, because some of our children, like 2.5, they're a little bit smaller and they're not going to fit on the bigger adult size toilet. You can just use a standard toilet. You might need a footstool or a portable handrail so they can hold on and keep themselves on the toilet. And choice is going to be contingent on age, size, motor skill level, and parental preference. You can really use whatever you want, but plain is best, because then you're going to have to generalize to the adult size potty or toilet, and those toilets are everywhere. So I have parents that I work with, though, that will bring along their potty seat or potty chair with them to all their outings, and that's awesome because that helps with generalization, and then they can eventually fade that potty seat or potty chair out of the community. But if you need to travel with one, they sell wonderful travel ones online. Yes?
I haven't heard of portable handrails. Could you, like, what does that look like? What do they?
Yeah, I would just check on Amazon. Yeah, and they have they're like pop-up, yeah. They're just pop-up like handrails that you can pop up and put next to the toilet. Just something for them to hold on to keep them stable.
Right. Okay.
So the adult isn't standing there, like trying to hold them on the potty seat, or it can get awkward in there sometimes. Oh, yes.
Right. So for a child who's not walking or not able to physically do that by themselves, how do we go into the community and do it? Because like the portable handrails are great, but they're really not portable. So that's what I struggle with. My daughter's 4.5. She has no desire and she's not walking. So it would be me potty training.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Like she can't say, oh, I have to go and do it. I have to do it, which is fine. I'm not saying I won't do that for her. But like, I feel like that's my question. Like how do we know when, how, what, where, when? I mean, you've given us great ideas and it doesn't mean we won't take them, but like the portable hand raise, like for her to do it herself, she would need that.
Right.
And like, it's really hard to take a diaper off of a 4-year-old while they're standing if they're not able to stand without supporting you.
Right.
Or you supporting them.
Have you tried other travel options, like travel size potty seats for her?
We really haven't. I mean, I tried it like a year and a half ago. Once because I kept putting her on there, but she doesn't show any recognition. I don't know if she can tell when she has to go. I mean, I know I probably could train more, but I also feel like there's so much involvement on me that I don't know what is a reasonable expectation.
Sure. Yeah, and I think
Sorry.
No, absolutely, and it's a really great question. I think the first step would definitely be to work on the success in the home environment first before taking it to the community. We recommend that for all of the children that we work with.
So
And
I'm sorry.
yeah.
Do you recommend like pull-ups then in the community or just diapers and like say it's okay when we're at home use the diaper?
Yeah, and we're going to talk about that. I like to recommend taking an airless approach. And what that means is that you're only in underwear when we're potty training. When we're not in potty training and I can't be watching you the whole time and catching your accidents, then you're in diapers or pull-ups.
That doesn't matter, like it doesn't.
Nope. The big thing is we don't want to have them practice making accidents or making errors.
Right.
And if they were in underwear, they'd be making those errors. But when they're in a pull-up, that's just, they're in a pull-up and it's fine. And we can just change and go back to the routine. But the big thing with potty training and being successful is making it errorless and having that schedule, having that access to reinforcement. And then when I'm not able to do those things or catch the accidents, then we're in diapers, and that's okay. And there won't be any setbacks or regression because of that factor.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
And maybe I'm kind of in the same boat as you. Mine's almost 4, not walking on his own. I mean, he can walk with assistance. Do you see success with potty training with kids like that?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
But like that the parent still has to help a lot, I assume.
Yeah, and it just depends on the level of need. So we want to get the child as independent as possible. Right. So if that means that they are requesting somehow, whether it be if they're nonverbal, they're pointing to a picture, or they're using their AAC device, or they're signing, or they're saying potty, that's an independent initiation. And then we want to get them either moving towards or walking into the bathroom. So the least amount of steps that we have to do for them, the better. But if there are still steps that we have to do, like we have to physically help them pull their pants up or we have to get them dressed, that's absolutely fine. But we want to give them as much independence as possible for those steps. And there's so many steps in that chain. So the least amount of things that we have to do, the better. If the only thing we have to do is at the end, when they're finished, they're like, hey, Mom, I'm done. And then we have to go in and wipe or pull their pants up, then that's great. They've got that first half of the chain independent.
I have a question, and I don't know if I have to wait or not, but
That's
for
okay.
example, my daughter has to take Miralax and sometimes even X-Lax every day because of the constipation, so I'm sometimes changing her like every 15 minutes, and it's just a little bit because she
Yes.
holds it.
Mm-hmm.
So I wonder how that plays into toilet training when I start, because yes, I'll do the underwear at home, but she holds it first. Sometimes I just make
Yeah.
it flat to
Yeah.
see if it comes out, but she doesn't like it.
Yeah.
So any tips if you're gonna address that at home?
We are, yeah. I'm going to talk about some of the data that's involved with like getting the information and then making a plan to target some of those things. Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about reinforcement. So we all know what our kids like and don't like, but sometimes it's hard to think outside of the box. And, you know, there are things that they like to do at school that we don't even know about at home. They're like, oh, wait a minute, they like to play with Legos? What? Like, we've had Legos in our house for 3 years and he's never touched them, but that's the only thing he wants to do at school. So I think gathering information from all of the adults that your child comes in contact with, grandma, grandpa, aunts and uncles, teachers, caregivers, what do they like to do when they're with you? And then getting some of that, you know, information and ammo in your pocket to figure out what your reinforcement is going to be. And that's really important. So one of the big things that parents like to use a lot, you'll hear, you know, edibles. That's an easy, quick delivery reinforcer. Most kids like candy or like chocolate or like ice cream or, you know, favorite cereals. And those are very easy to isolate because we're not giving our kids mounds and mounds and mounds of candy. So they're only used for very, you know, specific times of the day or specific, you know, activities. So that's a good one and very easy to isolate. Activities is another one, so using different games, the iPhone, the iPad, electronics are just huge right now with our kids and adults. So, you know, finding out what that specific game is, whether, you know, today it's Pokemon Go and yesterday it was Minecraft, and isolating those for potty training. Either way you go, whenever the reinforcement is delivered, you pair it with social praise because eventually we want the social praise to be the reinforcer that they need. We don't want to always have to be giving gummy bears every single time they use the potty because then we're worried about cavities and stomach aches and, you know, all those things that come with too much candy. So we want to pair it with lots of praise. If our child likes praise, we have some children and adults who don't want to be told they're doing a good job. So then we would keep it pretty neutral with a thumbs up or a, you know, way to go. But typically you'll hear about this, you know, potty party. Like everyone in the house is screaming, yay, we went potty, hooray. We're doing a dance around the kitchen. We're throwing streamers in the air. We're throwing candy everywhere. It's a very exciting moment. I found this picture of the potty training playdate party where you get all your friends together and you have a playdate, a potty playdate, and all the kids are doing potty training together and you're taking turns and it's this big social, awesome playdate and you're all talking about potty and you're watching Daniel Tiger and, you know, so just an example of something that you can, you know, keep in your back pocket.
Yeah.
Sorry?
You said it looks like it's Pinterest.
Oh, probably, yeah.
All the ideas get used.
So how do we figure out our schedule? So when are we going to be taking them to the potty and how do we figure this out? So the first thing we do is take baseline data. So what we want to do is how often is the child not using the potty now, but how often are they wet or soiled? And so we're checking the diaper every 30 minutes and we're recording whether they're wet or dry or they have a bowel movement. And then we're changing them, obviously, if they're wet or dry. During baseline, we're not saying anything. We're not taking them to the bathroom. We're really just taking data at this point. How often are they going? We also want to record when liquids were consumed and if medicine was administered, because sometimes medicine will have an effect on their bowel movements or urination. So what we want to do is, let's see, here's an example of a baseline data collection sheet. So we're going to, it's not working. Okay, I'll just talk about it. So your current time interval, this is where you're going to put your 30-minute schedule. And then your learner initiated, this is really for when you start teaching. The time you took them, the date, you're really only here recording accidents. So were they wet, were they dry, or were they soiled? And then any additional comments after that. And then what you're going to do with this data is after 2 to 5 days of collecting the baseline data, we're going to evaluate the amount of time that they were able to withhold urination. So, actually on the next slide we have a sample data sheet, so that'll be great. We want to look for patterns. So are they going every 30 minutes? Are they going every 20 minutes? Are they wet every 15 minutes? Are they going every hour? And that will help us determine what we set our interval for. And so here's our sample data. So we have a 30-minute interval. It looks like we collected data exactly every 30 minutes. And this is across 2 days. Literally every time we checked their diaper, they were wet, every 30 minutes. So what we want to do is set our interval at 20 minutes. We want to catch them before they go, so we want to set our interval for 5 to 10 minutes prior to when we saw their baseline data. And so they were wet every 30 minutes. We're going to set our interval to take them to the potty at 20 minutes. So every 20 minutes we're going to go potty. And we're probably going to catch them because they're going every 30 minutes. So this is interval training. It's the most commonly used. I'm sure some of you have already tried it. It is the easiest. It is very time intensive. It's very labor intensive. But what we're doing is we're taking the child on a set interval. So for example, our every 20-minute schedule. It prevents accidents by slowly increasing the intervals and allowing the child or adult to increase their bladder control and understand the relationship between voiding and earning the reinforcement. So every time they go on their interval schedule and they actually have a success, they're accessing that reinforcement. And then what we do is as they're slowly more successful over time, we're fading those intervals up. So we started at 20 minutes and they're successfully going every 20 minutes, and now we fade it to 30 minutes, and now they're successfully holding it and going every 30 minutes, so we're slowly increasing it over time. Typically, the highest interval is like an hour or 2 hours, depending on the child's age and how much liquid they're consuming. Mm-hmm.
If they don't go, how long do you let them sit there trying?
We sit for 1 to 2 minutes only, and then we start the interval over again. Mm-hmm.
If they are typically holding it for a very long time, what does that mean for their readiness, and what does that mean for this? 'Cause again, she's a little bit older to hold it quite a long time, and then she lets go. So
Yeah.
I guess I kind of try to figure out when that I didn't catch her before, but does that show any indication of readiness? If she's not doing it as frequently, or is that just it is what it is?
Nope, it is what it is. That's how she, wants to void. That's fine. She can hold it for as long as she wants, as long as she's going when she has to eventually go. So it would be collecting that baseline data and figuring out what interval is appropriate for her. So maybe it is she's going every 3 hours. So you set the interval at every 2 hours and 50 minutes. And then you're taking her at that 2 hour and 50-minute mark, sitting her on the potty. And 1 to 2 minutes is typically the first recommendation I give, but sometimes it takes kids a little bit longer to calm their body and get ready to go. So you can sit for 5 minutes, 6 minutes, and then you'd want to consult with your consultant to figure out how long you should be sitting for, if it should be longer or shorter. But it'll be in conjunction with the data from your successful data, but also your accidents. So how many accidents is she having a day also? And that will help to determine what the interval is set for, and then also how long you're sitting on the potty.
So when you're doing the interval training, would you do unders then? Unders in a t-shirt at that point? Or do you, okay.
Yep, so you're in underwear, your t-shirt, your socks if their feet get cold, because you're basically running around without pants on, and your focus is on them for that period of time. So let's say you want to do potty training for 2 hours a day. That 2 hours, your eyes are on their underwear. And you're doing fun things, and you're doing, activities, and you could be making dinner, but it's harder to make dinner and watch their underwear at the same time. So maybe around, afternoon, like if they just get home from school or they're home in the morning, and you have a good solid chunk of time to do it. for those couple hours, that's all you're doing. And to have those other distractions would definitely get in the way of catching the accidents. But yes, you're in underwear. Yes.
So you don't have to do like 48 hours straight?
No. No?
That's, yeah, we literally stayed in the bathroom for 5 days straight.
Yeah. No. Absolutely not. We don't recommend that.
You can have success, you can achieve success based on, and that is so much more realistic.
Yeah, absolutely. We have to make it work with your lifestyle.
Another thing you said that's different that I love is that, for those of you that have been trying to do it as long as I have, is we've always been told they have to sit for a period of time, and like you said, their bodies get sore, and, you know, and they're bored, and, you know, they're throwing, I mean, my goodness, you guys know all the stuff. So 1 to 2 minutes is
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. That's more than reasonable. 1 to 2 minutes should be like your good window.
And then you reset.
Then you reset.
And just another thing, you may notice that there are multiple interval watches I've purchased, but there is a potty watch, they call it a potty watch. They're $10. And if you're interested in them, they're wonderful. It has set intervals, very simple, small.
That's awesome.
They're $10 on Amazon, and don't try to change the batteries because the batteries are more than the watch. So just buy another watch. It's a really, really handy tool.
That's great.
It's called a potty watch.
What was the other
Yeah.
watch you mentioned?
Gymbot.
And there are other ones.
Maybe.
We're using it for other reasons with the timing things, so. And
Yeah.
If you guys have a question, I can show you that, but. It's
That's a great
extremely
recommendation.
For many, not just potty training.
Yeah, wonderful. Yeah, I guess one thing I didn't totally mention before is that when you're potty training, you can skip days. I mean, if
That is incredibly encouraging.
yeah. The biggest thing is, and a lot of the common strategies out there have you taking, get your child potty trained in 3 days and, 72 hours, and you're taking, time off of work, and you're spending the whole weekend inside, and you're running around naked, and, all those things. And it's really just, it's not realistic to the working population. I mean, there's other things that we need to be doing, and it's very simple to just take a few hours out of the day, 1 to 2 hours, more if you can, but really you only need a couple hours to, run the programming, do your interval training. They're coming in contact with those reinforcers. What we find is with the longer days, or like a 5-day potty training program, is when the caregiver or parent gets burnt out, they're not catching the accidents. There's accidents happening. They're not getting to the potty in time. You're exhausted. They're exhausted. You're seeing a lot more problem behavior because they're just frustrated. You're frustrated. I mean, it's a lot of just negative things around potty.
Stress on the accidents.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, I am. That's the most important part, right? Yeah. So as long as you can be 100% attentive or attending to the child's underwear, then you are okay to do potty training for that period of time. If you can't be on it, then don't do it. And it's fine. Just put them in a diaper. Put them in a pull-up. Okay, so for interval training, you want to set up the environment. You want to stay close to the bathroom. And this is because you want to have a quick transition. So when the timer goes off at 20 minutes or 2 hours and 50 minutes, you're right there and you can physically guide them to stand up and go use the potty. In the beginning, we want to guide them. We want to help them. We're prompting them because they don't know what to do right now. It's brand new for them. Or they've had exposure before and it hasn't been successful. So the timer goes off. We're prompting them to say or sign or request bathroom. And you can give them the language. You can say, I need bathroom. And sometimes they'll repeat you. Sometimes they won't. You can physically guide them to touch a bathroom icon. You can have them push a button on the wall that says, I need potty. And then you're physically guiding them to the bathroom, prompting them to pull their pants down, hand over hand, and sitting them on the potty. There's no talking during this time, so you can offer like neutral things for them to do on the potty, but you want to make yourself really not there. Our end goal is to have them be as independent as possible in there. So if we're talking to them or encouraging them or offering suggestions while they're sitting there, then it's harder for us to fade ourselves out of the bathroom, and that's our goal. So the less talking that we can do while we're in the bathroom, the better. Unless, sorry, go ahead.
Do you encourage, two questions. What do you do if your child is fighting you to not go into the bathroom?
Yes.
Is it a negative reinforcer to force them in there and to put them on the potty, or do you wait until they voluntarily go with you?
So the first thing we want to do is identify why they're fighting you. So
They're watching TV, or
is
they got
it-
a book, or they've got something else to where they don't want to leave that period of time.
right.
We have the same issue.
Yeah, so that would be escape maintain behavior. So they don't want to do this thing, so they're trying to fight you to get out of going so they can go back and access whatever they were doing before. So in that situation, you would want to physically guide them to the bathroom without talking or anything, providing any feedback, and just put them on the toilet for the 1 minute.
So kind of use the first this, then, or then you get this. So, first potty, then you can finish watching TV. So put it on
You can
pause,
say
something
that
like
before you tell them that it's
Yeah.
time to go potty, but once you've prompted them to say potty, then the chain has to happen,
Okay.
and then the reinforcer would happen afterwards.
Okay, so maybe,
I don't know if this is appropriate for all children, it may not be, but the timer watch too, like on, iPads and iPhone, it's got the visual red, and for Carter, that's extremely beneficial visually. And, for him to see that 1 to 2 minutes, and then you don't have to talk to him, it's extremely beneficial, so that might be it.
kind of like a 1 minute warning, 2 minute warning until it actually
Or
goes
even
off.
just a digital thing in the bathroom that you have Velcroed or stuck on
Mm-hmm.
the wall, and it's, you don't have to say anything, you just touch it, and they know, okay, I have to sit here for 2 minutes.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a great.
You don't have to verbally say it.
Okay.
That's extremely good.
Yeah.
And then, do you recommend sitting on the toilet regardless of number 1 or number 2 when you're first starting out, or just for consistency?
On your interval schedule?
Yes.
Yes, you
Okay.
would sit.
Okay.
Yeah, another good strategy to potentially use for kids who have a hard time with transitions is having a schedule. So like that visual schedule that I showed you with the social story, you can create that for their afternoon or their time that you're doing potty training. So if you're potty training in the afternoon and the first thing they do when they get home is they watch TV and then they have a snack and then they go outside and then they come in for a bath and then they have dinner and then they have shower. So if you're going to be doing potty training during those things, I would have your potty icon on there in the middle of all of those different activities. So every 30 minutes you're changing activities. Oh, and every 30 minutes we're going to the potty. So they can kind of see visually what the expectations are ahead of time. So that might be helpful too, to help, create some antecedent interventions to some of the problem behavior that you might be seeing. Okay, so we already talked about this. We covered this slide. So after 2 days of success, we want to increase our interval by 15 minutes. So I forget what I set my interval for, 20 minutes. Every 20 minutes they're going successfully for 2 days. Great, we're going to increase it by 15 minutes. And now we're going to be going every 35 minutes. Yeah, I do math. Now we're going to talk about a sit schedule. So sit schedules are really great for children and adults who have low muscle tone, who don't have the sensation or feel the sensation that they're wet, who don't care when they're wet, who never tell you when they have to go, and you see consistent accidents. This is a great recommendation. So a sit schedule is where the child is alternating longer periods of sitting on the toilet interspersed with scheduled play breaks and free play off the toilet. What we want to do is offer the child opportunities to successfully avoid, thus pairing the potty with lots of reinforcement. And so what this looks like is we are using our baseline data to determine when they're going to be sitting on the toilet and how long. And then what we're going to do is sit our child or adult on the potty and allow access to neutral items. So they can play with books, they can play with toys, they can read magazines. You can talk to them. This is totally different than the sit schedule. Than the interval schedule. This is a different procedure. So this is where you can be interacting with them. They're just, they're sitting on the potty. We're setting our timer. When they start to go, so you're watching, them sitting, when they start to void, that's when you offer the reinforcement. Hey, you're going potty, awesome work. You get a Skittle or you get a gummy bear and you get to come off the toilet and have a break. And we're going to play for a few minutes and then we're going to get back on. And if the child does not void during that sit interval, we still allow them to come off the toilet and play. They need to take a break. Their tushies are going to hurt after a little while. So we want to give them a break off the toilet. We'll play for a few minutes, and then we will go back on. So we're increasing the success of the child. We're increasing opportunities for success while the child or adult is sitting on the potty. And then we are decreasing the amount of time they're sitting and increasing the amount of free time that they have, based on the data that we're collecting. So again, this is not something that you want to do for 5 straight days. You want to set aside, a couple hours a day and run this procedure. Does anyone have questions on this? Yes.
So how long are they sitting? Maybe I missed that. Are they sitting for 2 to 3 minutes? Is that the long? Because you're saying they're going to sit a little bit longer.
Yes.
Or
Sorry?
just-
They don't. They sit for a period of time. So for our lower muscle tone children or who don't feel when they have to go, we want to see what their baseline data looks like. So let's say their baseline is every 30 minutes they're wet. Then we're going to have them sit for a 30-minute time period and then give them a break off the toilet. And it's not for every kid. 30 minutes is a long time to sit on the potty. We did this procedure with one of our kids with ACC. She was 3 years old, and it worked beautifully. We had her sitting for, I believe it was 30 minutes at a time. The second she started to go, she earned a fruit snack. She got off the potty, she played with her toys, she went back on the potty, and then learned feeling the sensation of, oh, this is what it feels like to go potty. Because she had no idea what that feeling was. But once it was paired with reinforcement and the adult was saying, that's going potty, that's what it is, that's what it feels like, then she started to recognize, oh, I feel like I have to go potty, and then it flipped. And then she started requesting to go potty, and then we switched the schedule to a sit schedule. Sorry, an interval schedule.
I got a question.
Yes.
What's the time frame you're saying? So they go potty, they get a snack, or they get a reinforcement.
Mm-hmm.
You said they get to play a little bit. What's the time frame? Play a little bit.
2 to 3 minutes, yeah. So they would have their...
Sit another 30?
Uh-huh. Yeah. And if they don't go during that interval, that's okay too. Let's come off, let's take a break, let's play with some of these other toys, and then we'll try again. And then we go back on the potty. But once they're successful, as soon as they're done going, then they come off, and they can come off. You can take them off for a little bit longer. Maybe it's 5 minutes once they've gone because they've just gone potty. Again, you're flushing them with liquids. They're still drinking a lot while they're sitting on the potty, while they're playing with their toys. I can't stress that enough. During potty training, you have to give them lots and lots and lots of liquid because the more they're drinking, the more likely you are to see success.
So they go and then you let them play for a few minutes, you're back on. What's the total? How long do you do this? Is it until they start requesting on their own?
It depends on your data. So you can start decreasing your sit intervals. So as they're successful, let's say for 2 days, they're successful, 50 times sitting for 30-minute intervals. And that's like an all-day schedule. But then, sorry, I just lost my train of thought. Can you ask your question again? I'm sorry.
Yeah, so what's the total time they're sitting? So basically they're sitting on the body for 30 minutes or until they go. Say they don't go, 30 minutes, 2 or 3 minutes off, another 30 minutes on. They go, 2 or 3 minutes off, back on. I mean,
Yes.
All day long?
No, so not all day long. You would set up...
I'm saying all day long?
No. So you can do it for as long as you can do it. So if you can only do it for 2 hours a day or 1 hour a day, that's all you would do it for. Yeah. And then if you can't do it on one day, that's okay. You do it the next day. Some of the clients that...
I'm a stay-at-home dad and I got all day. Should I do 5 days a month, 8 hours a day?
You can, yeah.
Is that good for the child?
And then come to Oklahoma.
You'll definitely see faster acquisition with the higher frequency, the longer intervals. You'll see faster acquisition for sure.
Can it create an anxiety in that child for sitting on that toilet that long?
Well, you'll be decreasing over time, so you want to make sure that you're working with a consultant or a potty training expert to make sure that you're looking at your data and decreasing the amount of time that you're sitting on the potty, because you don't want to have them sitting for 30 minutes all day, 8 hours a day for 5 days, because once they're successful at 30 minutes, then you want to decrease to, they're sitting for 20 minutes, now they're sitting for 10 minutes, now they're sitting for 15 minutes, and your intervals are getting shorter and shorter, and your time off the potty is getting longer. Yes?
I know it's kind of jumping in here, but I feel like we're running out of time. What do you do about the kid that doesn't care?
Yep.
It does not bother him at all
Yeah.
An accident.
to have an accident. He will
He's
absolutely
potty
flat out
trained,
tell
but
you to
he
your
doesn't
face,
care.
no, I didn't. I can see you're wet. No, I'm not. Jack, I know you had an accident. No, I didn't.
Yeah.
When you tell him, so we skip all of that. Jack, don't you get close. He's 12.
Mm-hmm.
Does not care.
Yeah, and so that's where we'd want to look at the function of the behavior, so really figuring out why he's saying...
It's a power struggle. He does not want to be told what to do.
Right,
He just,
right.
And so we don't
He
even
doesn't
get
want to be
prompts.
disrupted.
He doesn't want to be disrupted. He's watching TV. He's
Mhm.
watching
There are times he's, oh, I gotta go, does it, takes care of his business.
Mm-hmm.
And, yeah, oh yeah, he's not like, it's not, he knows, he usually knows. I mean, there are times that he is so focused that he doesn't know, but that's a different issue.
Right.
It's disruption of routine.
Mm-hmm.
Mostly it's disruption of routine.
Yeah, and that's
Or high
a...
stress.
Yeah, that's a big one, and it's a common...
The whole routine, to function in life is.
But how do you,
Easy.
so that's really our,
Yeah, and so what I would recommend is, working with a behavior analyst would be the best professional to reach out to figure out the function of the behavior. So figuring out why he's, lying about it or ignoring it or, engaging in the back and forth with mom and dad about it, and just really figure out why that's happening around potty in particular, and then be able to put in some recommendations for a function-based treatment. So looking at different things like reinforcement and looking at schedules and looking at, different things that you can maybe add into his routine that might help support the success of potty training. It's hard because I don't know him and I haven't seen the behavior, so this is one of those things that I can't give you any real recommendations without knowing the reasons why. But I'm sorry if that didn't answer your question. We are running out of time a little bit. I want to make sure we get to the accidents because I know you guys want to hear about that. But this quick slide, let me just see, manipulation of stimulus control. We talked about this a little bit in the beginning with the anxiety. So the examples I gave with the curtain and cutting away the diaper. These are some other things that you can do. This is totally separate from sit schedule and interval training. That have also been very successful with potty training. So you're looking at establishing stimulus control with different items that the child is around when they're voiding, and then using those to your advantage in the bathroom. So they're only going in the presence of this thing. Take that thing and bring that thing into the bathroom. We have a kid who would only go and have a bowel movement when he was in the bathtub. Only. So, giving him the sensation of being in the bath while sitting on the potty was interesting. We had the 2 bowls of warm water on his feet. We had the warm water on his hands. We're in the bathtub, right? And that helped. And then we faded the water away. Then we just had the bowls, and then we had no bowls. And then he was finally having bowel movement on the toilet and no longer in the bathtub, Mom was very happy about that. So that's an example of stimulus control at its finest. Initiations are the key to long-term success. We want to get them initiating, whether it is verbal, vocal, handing over a picture, physically prompting, using an AAC device. There's those buttons that you can put on the wall right outside of the bathroom. There are those buttons that you can put all over the house that say, I need the potty. However we can get them initiating and being as independent as possible and letting us know that they need the bathroom or they need some help in the bathroom is is wonderful, and it's definitely the key to long-term success and also generalization. We want them to be able to tell anybody that they have to go to the bathroom, not just mom and dad. We want them to be able to tell the camp counselor and the teacher. Yes, in the back.
Do you see a point in actually toilet training a child when they can't actually
Wait, sorry, I can't hear you.
Sorry, do you see the point in fully toilet training a child when they can't actually sit on the toilet, so by themselves, like with a strap on? So when you go into the community, there's nowhere for them to go, so you only really doing it at home. My daughter was time toilet her. She poos just about every day on the toilet, but when we go out for the day, we can't toilet. So I just wonder whether there's a point in actually toileting her at home when you can't even do it in the community.
I think yes. I would say absolutely. If there are certain environments where she can be more successful and independent, then absolutely, yes, we want her to be independent in those environments. If there are certain places in the community that she won't be able to go without the supports of you or a caregiver, then it's okay. You know, we'll just.
She just doesn't go. If I'm in the room, she doesn't go at all. I can put the strap on her in the toilet chair over the toilet and walk out. And then she can potentially go.
So she wants her privacy.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I can't do that anywhere else but home because there's no device you can take with you, so you can put it on public toilets or anything.
You can't put the device on the public toilet?
You can go out somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a bit hard with the wheelchair and the
No, there's not many family restrooms either.
Right.
and there's nobody to change.
Yeah, no, I would say that I would still say absolutely, as long as, you know, if she can be independent in her home or in the home that she's going to be living in for the rest of, you know, her life, then we want her to be as independent as possible in those environments. And in the community, it's just about, you know, working with your, you know, educating your community and working with the different places that you guys go to on a frequent basis and seeing what they can do to work with you and your family and getting those things established in those restrooms. The places she likes to go, or the supermarket, or places that you guys attend frequently. Might be something to ask about. Okay, another thing real quick to add to potty training are dry pants checks. This also helps increase the frequency of reinforcement. So you could be doing your sit schedule, you could be doing your interval schedule, you could be doing a fading procedure. You can add dry pants checks in the middle of your intervals to just increase the reinforcement that they're receiving during the potty training period. So you just catch them being successful. So, hey, you have dry pants. You earned a half of a Skittle. Remember, when we go pee-pee on the potty, you can earn a whole Skittle or 2 Skittles. So differentially reinforcing, you know, the greater reward for the big kahuna, you know, go and potty. And then those dry pants checks, they can get, you know, some little reinforcers. High fives if those work, you know, hugs. Different things like that. So it's another great thing to just have in your back pocket. If something isn't working or you're still seeing accidents, try adding in those dry pants checks. You know, you're on a 30-minute schedule. Every 15 minutes, just check the underwear. Hey, you're dry. Look at that. You earned this thing. Okay, error correction. This is accidents. Want to make sure we cover this one. The current practice recommends that we use a mild verbal reprimand as a startle statement to correct errors. So upon seeing an accident start to happen, which is why we say use dark underwear or no underwear if you guys are comfortable with that, you start to see the accident happen, you want to startle them because it actually helps them contract the muscles and hold the urine until they're sitting down. So what we want to do is say, no, pee goes in the potty, in a loud but neutral tone. We don't want to yell at them. But we're not yelling at our children. Right. Yeah, that, yes. Neutrally. Yep. No, pee goes in potty. Like that. Let's all practice. Ready?
No, not on the couch.
Right. Exactly. And then you go over and you pick them up and you place them on the toilet in a very swift fashion because you only have like a few seconds. Pull their pants down, sit them on the potty, and they continue to go on the potty. That's still considered a success. They still get the reinforcer. They have finished on the potty. Even though they had a little bit of an accident, it's okay. It's going to be fine. If they finished having the accident, and it's run down their leg, and it's soaked your couch, and it's all over your $450 carpet from Pottery Barn, then you just go into the bathroom and change their clothes. Neutrally, there's no talking about the accident. There's no, like, what happened? Why did you miss the potty? I'm super bummed. You ruined my carpet. So none of that stuff. If we miss the accident, we ignore it, we change them, and we move on to the next thing, and we start our interval all over again. So the important thing is we want to catch the accidents, and that's why I say set aside your time frame to where you're only focused on potty training. Nothing else is going to distract you. The laundry can wait, the dinner can wait. Hopefully siblings are playing with you or distracted doing something else. But your focus needs to be on those underwear, so when that accident starts to happen, you can catch it and get the success on the potty. The more access and more times they have that repetitive success on the potty, the more likely you're going to have success long term and also faster. We call this an errorless approach.
Only reprimand you make is if you visually see them start.
Yes.
Otherwise you don't.
Yes. That's the only time we would neutrally say, loud, but neutrally, no, pee goes on potty. And then pick them up and put them on the potty. There's other practices out there that have a positive practice recommendation where you actually have the child go back and clean it up. They take out the cleaning supplies, they take their clothes off, they put their clothes in the laundry, and a lot of this like repetitive punishment. I don't recommend that. We want to make this as positive as possible for you and for the child. So the more positive statements that we can make around potty training, the better. The only negative thing you'll say is, no, pee goes in the potty. The entire time you're potty training. Okay. And then we'll quickly cover bowel training. So usually, yes.
Yeah, I just have a question. So I didn't start yet, technically with my 2.5-year-old,
Mm-hmm.
but if he does not go potty when he's sitting on there and then we take him off, but if he throws a fit because he didn't get the treat because he didn't go potty, do you have any suggestions in that moment?
Yeah, I would keep reminding him throughout the day or throughout your potty training time frame that remember, we go potty, we get, what is he earning? His treat.
What was that?
What's his reinforcer? Like what's?
I'll probably use animal crackers.
Okay. So we can only have animal crackers during potty training or when he goes potty. And what you can do is help with some visuals. So you can have like a picture of a potty and then like equals animal cracker. And you can have that like in the potty. You can talk about it with him. So when we go potty, we get animal crackers. And then if he sits down and doesn't go, we can say, okay, well, we'll try again next time. Let's set your timer. And then you can have him work with you to set the timer for 20 minutes or 30 minutes. Flush with liquids, more liquids. And then hopefully the next time he can get access to the animal cracker.
Or you can eat it in front of him, go see
Yes, you can do that. Yep, you can do that with you can do that with siblings. That peer model is very, very effective. Yes?
So if you can't get them to initiate,
Yes.
you just take them on potty anyway?
Yes. Yep, so you're prompting them to initiate.
And say potty or something, say potty, and if they don't say potty, you say, well, we're going anyway.
Well, you're not saying say potty, you're actually just saying it for them, or you're prompting them to say it, or you're just giving them the language to say potty. We like to keep it simple in the beginning. Some kids will just start with I need to go potty, and that's great. I need to go potty. Let's go. But prompting that language isn't necessary to get in the habit of that schedule. But that's eventually where we want to go. So we want to always provide that verbal prompt. Is your child verbal? Or
Somewhat, yeah.
okay. So if they can say potty, then you would want to prompt potty. Or you can do say potty, but if they don't say it, that's okay. And then I would just physically guide them. Mm-hmm. Yep. So the only thing you're saying when the timer goes off or when you're going to sit on the potty for your interval schedule is potty. We really want to reduce the amount of language that we're providing during that chain of behavior. So we say potty, and they say or don't say potty. We walk them over, we help them get undressed, sit them down, they sit for 1 to 2 minutes, they stand up, they go, and then we say hooray, we give them what they want, or they don't go, and then we finish the routine and say let's try again next time. And that's it. There's really no, okay, remember what we're going to earn, we're going to do this, and we're going to sit down, and then we're going to wash our hands, because then that's just adding too much language to the process. We want to make it as simple and clean as possible. Yes?
I have a question. The school was doing a potty watch for like a week or two, and that was great for a week or two. And then it became, he turned it off and wouldn't go. So then the school quit doing it. So what do you do?
Oh.
Like when he's like, turns the prompt off and he like refuses to go.
Yeah.
I mean,
So that would be a situation where you might want to add in some additional reinforcers for using the watch, almost like a dry pants check. But hey, you're using your watch, you're keeping it on, way to go, like every few minutes or every 5-10 minutes, and then adding in that additional reinforcer or that social praise for following the directions. That might be a recommendation.
Was the time
would give-
extending on the watch also?
No,
Because
like
if it was
they
the
were-
same thing every time, then
Yeah.
it might be just repetitive to him and he got sick of it.
it was like every 30 minutes. So then if they were doing story time or whatever, then it'd go, your watch went off, you go,
Yeah.
Right, because he didn't want to transition from the activity.
yeah. So he had to keep doing whatever fun thing he was doing.
Yeah.
They were using it to prompt him instead of prompt them. So
Right.
I was like, I don't need that anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you can change. No, so you just like, it's like an automatic set. Yeah,
It's super
exactly.
easy, isn't it?
Yeah, so as soon as you see
Yeah.
it,
And it was more of a reminder for me too.
right.
Because you get busy and
Mhm. Yeah, and it also,
looking at your phone or waiting,
Right.
it's just right there.
And if you weren't with them, like if he was with us, he heard it. Like, it's
And then
not
hopefully
like-
that it would like make the child as convinced as possible.
yeah, and it would also depend on the data too, like how often is he successful? Does he really need to go every 30 minutes? Can he wait an hour and a half to go? Or can he go during the normal transition times when the rest of the class is going? So that's the biggest thing with school too, is we want to get them on the regular schedule. When are the other kids in the classroom going? We don't want to pull them out because there's that loss of inclusion and loss of educational opportunities to go and now use the bathroom, which takes some kids 10-15 minutes to go through that routine. So that would be important to just analyze and look at when he's successful and how we can increase his schedule. Here's an example that you guys can use for scatter plot data. So figuring out when your child is having bowel movements. I don't think I covered this slide too much, but typically the bowel training happens when you're doing urination training, but sometimes it doesn't. And if it doesn't, we want to scatter plot our data and figure out when the child is actually having bowel movements. And this is an example of a scatter plot data sheet that you can use. So you're going to look at, and sorry, it's very small, but you're basically just going to fill in what times of the day they have a bowel movement. And then what you're going to do is 2 minutes before those intervals, if you'll find a pattern. Typically, kids will have some pattern in their bowel movements. If it's once a day or twice a day or 6 times a day, there's a pattern, and we will find it because we find patterns in all of our data. And then you want to take the child right before the interval starts and have them sit for 5 to 10 minutes, give them access to relaxing activities. They're sitting for a little bit longer for bowel movement. With urine, it's 1 to 2 minutes. With bowel movement, it's 5 to 10. Yes?
So what about a situation where we've done this, we kind of know when she's going to go, sometimes we'll sit there for 20 minutes, she gets up and goes poop standing.
Yes.
Do you think could there be something with the sitting versus
Yes.
standing? Like, I feel like
She's very well when she stands, but not when she sits on the toilet. And we know it's within the same time frame.
Yeah, and I actually...
We should look into, like medically, like, if that she can't sit.
And you don't recommend any kind of penalties or punishment of any, because, I mean, it's Carter, he does the same thing, and he will sit there for 30 minutes and then get up and be 5 foot away from the toilet and poop in his pants.
Exactly.
Oh, gosh, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So we're not
And
getting
you
it all the
naturally
time.
want to,
Yeah,
She's
we're,
peeing successfully, pretty much.
But like, we're hitting the right time of the day, we're doing relaxing activities, so is that a control thing, or is that she can't feel it when she sits? That's what I'm starting to wonder.
Yeah, and it could be different things. Obviously, you'd want to talk to your pediatrician about.
She's been quite a long time ago, but not in the last 8 months.
Right, so that could be an anxiety thing too, like what happened the first time she went and looking around, at what that was like for her, and what happened. Yeah. Yeah. I did have a similar.
Do you think it's something like medical that we should like look into, or do you think it's more of a behavior that we should look into?
It could, I mean, you always want to rule out the medical first, like I said before. We always want to make sure there's nothing impacting their ability to physically go, and that could be one of the things. But I can tell you, I did work with a child who had to stand while pooping as well, and it was behavioral and control. So we actually had him safely standing on the toilet at first, and shaped the behavior to then where he was squatting on the toilet and holding on like a frog. Yeah, in a diaper. We had him in a pull-up. And then we slowly faded him to sitting. So reinforcing, again, that shaping procedure, closer and closer approximations to where he was then sitting, and we had to cut away the diaper. So don't go home and put your child standing on the toilet with this recommendation. But that's just an example of some. Sorry, now I have to wrap it up because we're running over time. I know. Yeah. I guess, we'll have, and there are some of these considerations that I wanted you guys to look at, but.
To allow us to maybe gain access to all of your slides.
I think that the organization does. Yeah.
I think it will be podcasts once you set it up to podcast.
Yes.
But I also read the slides on the website.
Yes.
What would you recommend for planning at nighttime?
For nighttime accidents? So we'd always want to start with baseline data. So what we typically do for nighttime accidents is we'll have the parents get up every hour for one day, for like 1 or 2 days, and check.
Like a bed alarm or...
There are those too. So there's the wet, there are these new devices where it's like a sanitary pad that you put in the underwear, and that it will go off when it gets wet. So it will warn you that the child is having an accident or about to have an accident. So that's another example. There are different things that you can do to get some baseline data. And then what you would do is you want to limit liquids 2 hours before bedtime. You don't want to give them any access to liquids. And then you would either wake up at that interval where they're wetting the bed and prompt them to use the bathroom, or there are other methods like waking up with a dry pants, and then you access reinforcer, or like so many dry pants days in a row, and then you access reinforcement. So nighttime is a whole separate presentation by itself. Yes. Sorry. Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Going back to the bowel movement.
Oh, thank you guys so much.